Anatomy of a Haunting. Deconstructing the psychic powers and cultural legacy of Annabelle the doll part I. The genesis of a modern ghost story. The legend of the Annabelle doll, a cornerstone of modern paranormal folklore, did not begin with the sinister porcelain figure known to global film audiences, but with a common children's toy in a modest American apartment. Its narrative is a case study in the escalation of perceived supernatural phenomena, evolving from the mundane to the malevolent. To understand the cultural force Annabelle has become, one must first dissect the foundational story as it was originally chronicled by paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. Section 1.1. The Nurse and the Raggedy Ann Doll. The story begins around 1971 in Hartford, Connecticut. A 28-year-old nursing student, known by the name Donna or Deirdre. Received a Raggedy Ann doll from her mother as a birthday or Christmas gift. The doll, a mass-produced item with yarn hair and a printed smile, was purchased from a second-hand hobby store. Donna and her roommate, another nurse named Angie, initially placed the doll on a bed as a simple decoration. The first reported anomalies were subtle and easily dismissible. The roommates would notice the doll in slightly different positions than where they had left it. This soon progressed to more pronounced movements. Donna would leave for work with the doll on a sofa in the living room, only to return and find it in her bedroom with the door shut. At this early stage, the roommate's reaction was not one of terror, but of amusement. Some accounts suggest they even engaged in ghoulish games, playfully posing the doll to startle one another, indicating an atmosphere of jest rather than genuine fear. This dynamic shifted when the phenomenon became more inexplicable. The women began discovering handwritten messages on scraps of parchment paper, material they claimed they did not keep in their apartment. The notes, penned in what appeared to be a child's script, contained pleas such as "Help us" and "Help Lou," the name of a male friend. The introduction of this tangible, yet unexplainable, evidence marked a significant escalation, moving the events from the realm of potential misperception into something more concrete and unsettling. The narrative structure itself appears designed to guide an audience from skepticism to belief, starting with ambiguous events and introducing progressively harder to dispute evidence. The true turning point from a strange curiosity to a frightening ordeal allegedly occurred with a physical manifestation. According to the Warrens' account, Donna returned home one day to find what looked like drops of blood on the doll's hands and chest. This alarming development compelled the nurses to seek external expertise, leading them to contact a psychic medium. The medium conducted a seance in the apartment during which she claimed to make contact with the spirit. She relayed a tragic story. The spirit was that of a 7-year-old girl named Annabelle Higgins, whose body had been found on the land where the apartment complex was later built. The medium asserted that the spirit was not malevolent, but was a lonely child who felt a connection to the doll and simply wanted to be loved and accepted by the nurses. Moved by compassion, Donna and Angie reportedly granted the spirit permission to continue inhabiting the Raggedy Ann doll. This act of consent, born of empathy for a supposedly lost child, is a critical pivot in the legend. Within the demonological framework later applied by the Warrens, this invitation is reframed as a catastrophic spiritual error. The narrative presents a cautionary tale where benevolent intentions, when misapplied in the spiritual realm, can inadvertently open a doorway for a much darker entity, transforming an act of kindness into the catalyst for a demonic infestation. Following the seance, the paranormal activity reportedly intensified dramatically, conforming to classic descriptions of a poltergeist haunting. The nurses experienced knocking sounds from within the walls, flickering lights, beds that would shake violently at night, and sudden, inexplicable drops in room temperature. The narrative then introduces Lou, a friend of the nurses who serves as the story's primary skeptic. From the beginning, Lou expressed a strong aversion to the doll, warning Donna that it felt evil and should be destroyed. His disbelief allegedly made him a target. Lou reported suffering a recurring nightmare in which the doll was on his bed, crawled up his body, and attempted to strangle him. The conflict between Lou's skepticism and the entity's presence culminated in a reported physical assault. While Lou and Angie were in the apartment planning a road trip, they heard rustling noises from Donna's unoccupied room. Lou went to investigate and, finding nothing amiss except for the doll tossed in a corner, felt a sudden presence behind him. He spun around to find no one there, but was immediately overcome by a burning pain in his chest. Upon opening his shirt, he discovered 7 distinct claw-like scratches, 3 vertical and 4 horizontal, that were hot to the touch but healed with unnatural speed, disappearing almost completely within 2 days. This violent attack on the narrative's disbeliever served as the ultimate catalyst, forcing the nurses to concede that the entity was not a harmless child but something malevolent, prompting them to seek help from the established authority of the church. Part 2. Part 2. The Warrens' demonological framework. Demonological framework. The arrival of Ed and Lorraine Warren marks the story's transition from a localized haunting into a formalized craft. The separate Pakanai, no Kopachatnai. Is that not the lot associating us to the containment protocol and Kachi, Kathos, and Established? Rather, the Kathos have a far and similar things to you. Tapestry. In the stairs, you'd have the longest of the delay for the day. It understood too much used. There's that. It's too much, man. Is it too bloody? Enters upon the section 2.0 of the second to the The Warrens, a self-taught demonologist and a professed clairvoyant medium respectively, investigated the claims and came to an immediate conclusion that differed sharply from that of the first medium. They asserted that the doll was not possessed by a human spirit but was being manipulated by an inhuman presence. They explained their core demonological principle. Human spirits do not possess inanimate objects. They possess people. However, non-human entities, demons, can attach themselves to an object, using it as a conduit or a doorway. To interact with the physical world, the entity's goal, they claimed, was not to live in the doll, but to gain enough recognition and instill enough fear to weaken the inhabitants' resolve, with the ultimate aim of possessing a human soul, specifically Donna's. The Warrens categorized the phenomena according to their stages of demonic activity: infestation, marked by the moving doll and written notes, which they warned was a prelude to oppression, direct spiritual and psychological attacks, and finally, possession. In their analysis, the seance was the crucial error, as the nurse's compassionate permission had granted the inhuman entity license to escalate its campaign of terror. This interpretation transformed a frightening but ambiguous haunting into a structured demonic assault, a Warren case, thereby elevating the threat and positioning their specialized expertise as the only solution. Section 2.2. The Catalog of Dark Powers. Over the years, the list of malevolent powers attributed to the Annabelle entity has grown, with each new incident adding to its dark resume. The reported phenomena can be categorized into distinct phases. Phase 1, the apartment haunting. The initial powers reported by the nurses in Lou included teleportation, moving between rooms, levitation, the materialization of physical objects, parchment notes, and biological matter, blood-like substance, and direct physical assault, attempted strangulation, and infliction of scratches. Phase 2. In Warrens' custody. After the Warrens took possession of the doll, its alleged powers expanded to influencing complex mechanical and electrical systems. During their drive home, they claimed it caused their car's power steering and brakes to fail repeatedly. Later, it was blamed for 2 separate vehicle accidents involving individuals who had shown it disrespect. A Catholic priest who dismissed the doll's power was involved in a near-fatal car crash on his way home from their house. In a more famous incident, a young man visiting the occult museum allegedly taunted the doll, banging on its case. He was killed in a motorcycle accident just hours later. Phase 3. Modern folklore and touring. The legend continues to evolve, absorbing new and unrelated tragedies. During the doll's 2025 Devils on the Run tour, its presence in Louisiana was linked by online speculators to a major fire that heavily damaged the historic Nottoway plantation, and, separately, to a 10-inmate prison break in New Orleans. Most recently, the narrative absorbed the tragic death of Dan Rivera, a senior investigator for the Warrens New England Society for Psychic Research, who passed away in July 2025 in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, while on tour with the doll. While authorities reported nothing suspicious about his death, the timing and location have been woven into the doll's mythology by believers, demonstrating the legend's dynamic ability to feed on contemporary events to sustain its relevance and aura of malevolence. Following their investigation, the Warrens arranged for a priest to perform a 7-page Episcopal blessing to cleanse the apartment of any residual negative energy. At Donna's request, they took the Raggedy Ann doll with them for safekeeping. The journey home was, according to their account, perilous. The car repeatedly stalled and swerved at dangerous curves until Ed Warren stopped, which retrieved a vial of holy water and doused the doll, after which the disturbances ceased. Once at the Warrens' home in Monroe, Connecticut, the doll allegedly continued its activity, levitating and appearing in different rooms. This led the Warrens to commission a specially constructed glass and wood case for it. They claimed the case was blessed and inscribed with prayers, intended to act as a spiritual barrier. The doll was then placed in their home visitors, warning to sign warning visitors. Warning to sign warning visitors. Warning. Positively do not open. In 2019, the museum was forced to close to the public due to local zoning violations. The Warrens' estate in Nisper, now managed by their son-in-law Tony Sparrow, began taking the doll and other artifacts on a traveling exhibit called the Devils on the Run tour. In 2025, rumors of the doll's escape went viral online. In 2025, causing widespread panic before being debunked as a marketing stunt for the tour or simply internet-fueled hysteria. The act of touring the doll presents a fundamental contradiction. The original narrative, reinforced by Lorraine Warren's own alleged warnings that the doll should never be moved, emphasizes extreme danger requiring permanent containment. Yet, its current status as a traveling spectacle suggests that the demands of commercial exhibition and maintaining the legend's public profile have superseded the original claims of imminent spiritual peril. The glass case has evolved from a tool of containment to a portable stage. Shifting from narrative retelling to critical analysis reveals significant evidentiary weaknesses and plausible non-paranormal explanations for the Annabelle phenomenon. The most significant flaw in the Annabelle case is the lack of independent primary source corroboration. The entire story, from the doll's first movements to the attack on Lou, is told almost exclusively through the filter of Ed and Lorraine Warren, the supposed original owners. Donna, Angie, and Lou have never come forward publicly to share their accounts, while some have suggested they wish to remain anonymous due to trauma or fear of ridicule. Their complete absence from the public record for over 5 decades is conspicuous. This has led skeptics to question whether they were real individuals or perhaps composite characters or pseudonyms created to construct a compelling narrative. Furthermore, the central figure of the initial haunting, the ghost girl, Annabelle Higgins, appears to be a fiction. Extensive searches of public records, including death certificates and historical newspaper archives for Hartford, Connecticut, and the surrounding areas, have yielded no record of a 7-year-old girl by that name dying under the circumstances described in the decades preceding the 1970s events. The absence of any historical person matching this description strongly suggests that the story of the ghost girl was an invention, whether by the medium who conducted the seance or by the Warrens themselves as a narrative device, without verifiable witnesses or a factual basis for its inciting spirit. The entire supernatural claim rests on the uncorroborated testimony of individuals with a clear professional and financial interest in the story's authenticity. Anomalistic psychology, the study of paranormal beliefs and experiences, offers a range of non-supernatural explanations for the events attributed to Annabelle. These explanations do not require the existence of demons, but rely on well-documented psychological and physiological phenomena, cognitive biases, and perception. Human brains are wired to find patterns and agency, even where none exist. Pareidolia is the tendency to perceive meaningful images, such as a face and ambiguous stimuli. A doll's simple features can thus be interpreted as having expressions. Apophenia is the tendency to see connections between unrelated things. A doll falling off a bed and a floorboard creaking later could be linked into a causal paranormal event. Once a belief in haunting takes hold, confirmation bias leads individuals to selectively notice and remember events that support that belief while ignoring those that do not. Suggestibility and priming. The nurse's initial playful pranks may have primed them to be hyper-aware of the doll, creating an atmosphere of playful fear that could have turned genuine. The medium's dramatic story of Annabelle Higgins would have acted as a powerful suggestion, framing all subsequent ambiguous events within a supernatural context. The uncanny and fear response, dolls, particularly those that mimic human form, can evoke a sense of unease known as the uncanny valley. This feeling of creepiness stems from the ambiguity of an object that is lifelike but not alive, triggering a state of hypervigilance and making one more susceptible to interpreting stimuli as threatening. Physiological and environmental factors. Blue's terrifying experience of being strangled in his sleep is a classic description of sleep paralysis, a state in which the brain is awake but the body remains temporarily paralyzed. This state is often accompanied by vivid and frightening hypnagogic hallucinations and a feeling of pressure on the chest. The unexplained scratches could have psychosomatic origins or be unconsciously self-inflicted during sleep or a state of panic. Other environmental factors such as infrasound, low-frequency sound below human hearing, or unusual electromagnetic fields have been scientifically linked to feelings of dread, cold spots, and the perception of shadowy figures. While the supernatural narrative of a demonic doll is dramatic and compelling, it is far from the only explanation. A combination of normal psychological processes and environmental anomalies can account for every element of the original Annabelle story without resorting to paranormal claims. The Annabelle legend did not emerge in a vacuum. It is a modern iteration of the long-standing haunted doll trope in folklore and popular culture. Its most notable predecessor is Robert the Doll, a toy displayed in Key West, Florida, whose legend dates back to the early 20th century. The stories of Robert and Annabelle share numerous narrative parallels. Both are said to be children's toys that move on their own, are capable of malevolence, and bring misfortune to those who disrespect them. Even more striking are the parallels to a 1963 episode of the highly popular television series, The Twilight Zone. The episode, titled Living Doll, aired a full 7 years before the Annabelle case began. It features a talking doll that terrorizes its owner's family, and the mother in the story is named Annabelle. The similarities: a sentient doll that becomes a source of domestic terror linked to a character named Annabelle are too specific to be easily dismissed as coincidence. This suggests a strong possibility of cultural influence, where elements from a popular work of fiction were consciously absorbed and repurposed into a true paranormal account, a process known as cryptomnesia. Section 3.4. The Warrens Under Scrutiny. To fully contextualize the Annabelle story, one must examine the controversial career of Ed and Lorraine Warren. Far from being universally acclaimed, they were highly polarizing figures within the field of paranormal research. They faced persistent accusations from skeptics and even fellow paranormal investigators of being fame-seeking charlatans who fabricated or sensationalized cases for financial gain and media attention. Their credibility is deeply tied to their involvement in other high-profile cases that have since been widely discredited. Most famously, they were key promoters of the Amityville Horror, a case that has been exhaustively debunked and admitted by some participants to have been a hoax invented over many bottles of wine. This established pattern of involvement in sensational, yet evidentiarily weak, cases casts significant doubt on their other claims. Science writer Sharon A. Hill has argued that many of the myths surrounding the Warrens were seemingly of their own doing, and that their Hollywood portrayals have made it difficult for the public to separate fact from fiction. Her assessment of the Annabelle case is stark. We have nothing but Ed's word for this, and also for the history and origins of the objects in the museum.
This critical perspective underscores that the Annabelle legend is not a verified paranormal event, but a story propagated by controversial figures with a history of promoting unsubstantiated claims. Part Phi. The Annabelle Apotheosis. From artifact to icon. The final stage of Annabelle's evolution saw her transcend the confines of a disputed paranormal artifact to become a global horror icon. This transformation was not driven by any new supernatural evidence, but by the powerful machinery of Hollywood and the modern media landscape, which reinvented her image, expanded her mythology, and cemented her place in the public consciousness. Section 4.1. The Hollywood Reinvention. The single most pivotal moment in Annabelle's rise to fame was her cinematic debut in the 2013 film, The Conjuring. For the movie, the doll underwent a radical visual transformation. The real Annabelle is a common, mass-produced Raggedy Ann doll with a benign, smiling face. The film version, however, is a terrifying porcelain doll that is disfigured and immediately menacing, with cracked skin, a sinister grin, and haunting, wide eyes. This redesign was a deliberate creative and commercial decision. Firstly, filmmakers believed a standard Raggedy Ann doll was simply not visually frightening enough to serve as the antagonist in a major horror film. Secondly, and perhaps more importantly, using the likeness of a Raggedy Ann doll would have created significant trademark and copyright issues with Hasbro, the toy company that owns the brand. By creating a new original design, the studio could freely merchandise the character and build a franchise around it. This new porcelain visage has now completely supplanted the original doll in the public imagination, becoming the definitive image of Annabelle. The scale of this reinvention is best illustrated by a direct comparison. Appearance and origin. The most immediate difference is the doll's appearance. And the Warrens' account. Annabelle is a standard Raggedy Ann doll. And the Warrens' account. Annabelle is a standard Raggedy Ann doll, whereas the films present a large, antique porcelain doll designed to be menacing. Their origin stories also diverge. The real legend begins with the doll being a simple gift bought from a hobby store. The cinematic universe creates a far more sinister backstory, with the doll being crafted by a doll maker in the 1940s and later becoming possessed after a satanic cult ritual. Entity and events. The nature of the entity is also altered. The Warrens described an inhuman presence using the doll as a conduit to eventually possess a human. The films depict a powerful demon directly tied to the doll, which acts as a beacon for other spirits. Consequently, the key events are dramatically escalated for the screen. The original story involves subtle doll movements, mysterious notes, and scratches on a skeptic. The films expand this to include brutal murders, house fires, and large-scale spiritual warfare. Characters and owners. The identities of the characters are completely reinvented. In the original tale, Annabelle Higgins was the name of a fictional 7-year-old ghost girl used as a mask by the demon. The films repurposed this name for an adult cultist who facilitates the doll's possession through her suicide. The owners are also changed from two nursing students, Donna and Angie, to a fictional married couple, John and Mia form, and later the Warrens' own daughter, Judy. Section 4.2, The Conjuring Universe and Narrative Expansion. The films in the Conjuring universe did not simply adapt the Warrens' story. They constructed an entirely new and far more elaborate mythology for Annabelle, weaving her into a complex tapestry of interconnected supernatural lore. The 2014 spin-off Annabelle introduced the fictional satanic cult, the Disciples of the Ram, as the source of the doll's evil. The 2017 prequel, Annabelle Creation, went back even further, inventing a tragic origin story involving a doll maker, his deceased daughter, and the demon's first successful possession of a young orphan named Janice, who would grow up to become the cultist Annabelle Higgins. The third film, Annabelle Comes Home, 2019, solidified the doll's status as the malevolent centerpiece of the Warrens' collection, depicting her as a beacon for other spirits capable of activating all the other haunted artifacts in the museum. This cinematic narrative, with its intricate backstories and connections to other entities like the demonic nun Valak, has become the definitive version of the Annabelle legend for a global audience. It has effectively overwritten the original, more ambiguous folktale told by the Warrens. The success has been immense, making the Conjuring universe the highest-grossing horror franchise in history, with Annabelle as one of its central pillars. Section 4.3, Conclusion. The enduring power of a modern myth. The enduring legend of the Annabelle doll is a testament not to supernatural power, but to the power of narrative. Its persistence and cultural impact can be attributed to a perfect storm of interconnected factors. The story began as an archetypal ghost tale, tapping into primal fears of the uncanny, the corruption of childhood innocence, and the terrifying idea that evil can manifest in the most banal and domestic of places. This foundational story was then amplified and legitimized by charismatic and media-savvy storytellers, Ed and Lorraine Warren, who codified it within their own marketable demonological framework. Finally, it was perfected and globally disseminated by Hollywood, which gave the entity a terrifying new face and embedded it within a blockbuster cinematic universe. The lines between the original folklore, the Warrens' paranormal brand, and cinematic entertainment have been irrevocably blurred. Annabelle is no longer merely a Raggedy Ann doll in a museum case. She is a transmedia phenomenon, an icon of modern horror. Her dark powers are not demonic but psychological and cultural, a reflection of our collective anxieties and our deep, unwavering fascination with a well-told, terrifying story.